Hi everyone, I hope you're having a very nice beginning of the year, and speaking of that, this is the time when many of us have to work with inventory count discrepancies. The example that I'm bringing you today is to show you how I approach files with several sheets. Those sheets have a very inconsistent layout. I'm going to consolidate all the information from all those sheets in one table, connected to another two tables from a different file. All this work will be done with Power Query, loaded to Excel as a connection only, so we can build these pivot tables and pivot charts to identify main discrepancies by store, by product, by zone, and manager. My name is Alejandra and I'm very excited to share this with you. If you like what you see here, remember to subscribe and let's get started because we have a lot to cover today. Let me start by showing you the content of this file, all stores, where we have 10 sheets. Each sheet has the information that comes from different stores, and you can see that there is no consistency on the layout from each sheet. We're going to use Power Query to consolidate all this information in one table. Let's close this. Let's open a new workbook. Go to Data, Get Data, From File, From Workbook. This is a file that I just showed you. Double-click there. Here we have the content of that file, 10 sheets. I'm going to bring only one sheet because I need to create a function first to be applied to all of these other sheets so we can consolidate all this information. Select Store 1, Transform Data. You can select any other sheet. In my case, it's just easy to select the first sheet that I have available. Here is the content of my sheet. I'm going to rename this query. Here I can press just F2 or double click. I'm going to call it FX for function, all sheets. And I don't need this step, change type, I'm going to remove it. That brings me back to the navigation. I'm going to right click here and insert step after, and I will explain that shortly. I'm going to rename it F2. I'm going to call it base. This will be my base when I'm running my function. I need somehow to identify this line with the titles on each sheet, and I need to do it dynamically. The index column will help me to get that. I go here to add column, index column, click at the row on the right, select from 1. This will give me a number for this row. In this case, it's number 5. Other sheets will have different numbers. I need to find a way to identify this line, and that will be through a filter. I can filter by any of these texts. I'm going to filter by the word item. Here on item, right click, text filters, equals. I have my titles line well identified, and they have an assigned number. I need to create a step to have this number well identified. I'm going to right click at the 5, drill down. By doing that, I created a step here that it says index. I can always refer to this step by the name index. You can change the name of this step, but just be mindful that you will need that name to refer later on. So I'm going to leave it as index. Now I want to go back to my base. I want to bring the content of my sheet to start modifying. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Control Shift plus. I want to create a new step so it can bring me the information from this base step. So from here, from the index step, I can right click and select insert step after, or I can go to the formula bar and click at this FX and my step has been created. I'm going to rename it. I'm going to press F2, say back to base, enter. This step is referring to the index. I don't want that. I want that this step refers to base. I'm going to delete index. I'm going to start typing base, capital B, A. Now, my step is here. Click there, enter. It brought me the content of sheet 1 or store 1. Let me make it a little bit smaller, Control Shift minus. I can start modifying my sheet. The first thing that I'm going to tell Power Query to do is to remove the rows above the title. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. Let's stay here on the Home tab, remove rows, remove top rows, and it's going to ask me how many. I want to remove 4. Enter. You can see that that step has a hard-coded number 4. I don't want that this stays as hard-coded because I have sheets that have a different number of rows above the titles. Let's make it dynamic by deleting the for, calling our index step. Now we're using this step to dynamically identify that number connected to the titles, so it doesn't matter which number that line has. What matters is that it's well identified by the index step. In this case, our index step had number 5, that is the row where the titles are. We don't want to delete those many rows. We want to delete one row above the titles. For that reason, I'm gonna deduct 1. So index -1 will give me the number 4. I go outside of the parentheses, press enter. Of course, nothing changed here, but now it's dynamic. It doesn't matter where the titles are. It will remove the rows above those titles. Next step, let's promote the rows as headers. Here in the Home tab, use first row as headers. Click there. And everything else seems to be fine. Let's create our function. From here, on the View tab, click at Advanced Editor. Here are all the steps that we just prepared. So you can see every single one. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Ctrl+Shift+. Let's transform this to a function. I'm going to click here on the left of let. Press enter twice just to give some room. To transform this to a function, I need to start by opening a parenthesis. This will be all sheets. After the parenthesis, I need to say equal, higher than. Now, this is telling Power Query that this will be a function. For my function, I don't want to perform the first 2 steps. I don't need my function to do that. I will select those 2, delete it, and start from my step base. My step base is bringing only the first sheet. We are going to delete this and replace it with all sheets. So I'm going to delete that. Make sure that you keep the comma. Select all sheets. So I'm sure that I'm spelling things correctly. If I don't spell this correctly, my function is not going to work. For me, it's easier to select that text. Ctrl+C. Go here after the equal, just before the comma, Ctrl+V. And my function is ready to go. I think this is the first time that I show you how to create a function, so I'm very excited though. And I press done. This has become a function. Let's bring our workbook. Here on the query section, right click, new query, file, Excel workbook. Here is the file, double click there. We have the content of that file. I want to bring all the sheets. I don't have to manually select one by one. I can just click at the folder on the top and that will bring all the sheets. Select that and I say OK. Here we have the information from each sheet. For example, store 1, here is the table that is included in that tab. Store 2, 3, 4, and so on. Now I want to invoke my function to be applied to this data column. I'm going to go to Add Column, Invoke Custom Function. At this point, I'm not too concerned about the title of that column, so I'm going to leave it as is. Here on the function query, click at the row on the right. This is our function. We have only one, so that's the only option that we have. I have the column data. If you don't have this in automatic, go to this little table here on the left, click at the row, select column name. On the right side, click at the row and select data. I say OK. Now we have on this new column that is coming from our function all sheets. If I click there on the right of the table text, you will see that now we don't have any empty rows at the top. We only have the titles and the information below those titles. We need to delete all the other columns. I just want to keep the name of the store or the name of the sheet and the FX all sheets column. I'm gonna select the name, press Ctrl and select FX all sheets, right click and remove other columns. Now I'm able to combine all this information in one table. I'm going to click here to these two rows, click there, and I can see the name of the columns. I can select all the columns that I want to bring. I want to bring all of them. I want to remove this. I don't want to use the original column name as prefix. And it says list may be incomplete, just to make sure that everything is coming to my table. I'm going to click here where it says load more. And now you can see that we don't have any warning. I press OK. All our information has been consolidated. You can click here on this arrow on the right. We have all the 10 stores included in this list. Now, let me make this a little bit smaller because I want to make some changes. I want that these two columns have a data type of whole numbers. Right now, it's a combination between text and whole numbers. I select the first column, press Control, select the second column, press and hold Shift, click at this square, and select whole number. Both columns change the data type at once. I want to include a calculation here. I have the units that I have in the system, and I have the units from the count. I want to get the difference between those two numbers. It's very important the order of how you select these columns. So I want to have the units from the count minus the units in the system. I select units from count first, press and hold Control, and then select units in system. Here on the Add Column tab, I go to Standard, and I'm going to subtract. You can see that my calculation is correct. So 316 minus 326 gives me a negative 10. The data type is whole number, which is correct. I'm going to rename this query table all stores. Now let's bring two tables from a different file so we can connect them. Here on the queries section, right-click, new query, file, workbook. The file is called dim tables. Double-click there or select that file and press import. This is the content of that file. I want the tables only. I'm going to click here on select multiple items. I get the check mark there, and then I can select my two tables. Press OK. Here are my two tables. The product list table has the item number, the description, the unit selling price, and the unit cost. The second table has the store, manager, zone, and the employee number. I'm gonna merge these three tables or these three queries. I right-click here on the query section, new query, combine, merge queries as new, or I can go to the Home tab. Here on the top, it says merge queries. I can click at that row and select merge queries as new. I'm going to start by selecting the table all stores. And I'm going to connect it first to the product list. I need to find a way that they can talk to each other, that they have something in common that is going to connect them. And that is the item number column. So I select item from the first table, item number from the second table. You can see that the selection doesn't have any errors. And I say, OK. This is my new query. And we're going to rename it instead of merge. Let's say all discrepancies. Enter. Let's merge this new query with the store manager list. I can stay here on the Home tab, merge queries, and now I can select just merge queries. My first table is already all discrepancies. My second table will be store manager list. Same thing, I need to find a way that these two communicate to each other. Name and store have the same information. There are no errors on the connection. I press OK. On the right, you will notice that we have two new columns. One is for the first connection that we did with the product list, and the second one is for the store manager list. Let's start with the product list. If you click here at the rows for combine, you can select which columns you want to bring from that connection. I don't want the item number. I already have that on the table all stores. That if I bring it, it will be duplicated, so I don't need that. I need to bring the item description. I don't need the selling price. I only want the unit cost because I want to know how much those discrepancies are costing to the company. I say, OK. We have the item description and the unit cost. Next, let's bring the columns from the second connection. Click at those arrows at the top. I don't want to bring the store number. I already have that on my first table. I want to bring the manager and the zone. I don't need to bring the employee. I say, okay. Now let's start organizing this information. I want to bring the zone first, then the manager. I'm going to select that column zone, press Control, select the column manager, right click, move to beginning. At the beginning, now we have zone, manager, the store name, item number. Let me bring the item description. Okay. I have the units in the system, the units from count column where I calculated the difference between the two numbers, and I have the unit cost column. I'm going to add one more column to calculate the difference in units times the unit cost, so I can get the total cost of those discrepancies. I'm going to select unit cost, press and hold Control, select subtraction that I should have renamed, but I will rename it soon. Go to add column, standard, and we are going to multiply. Now we have our total cost of those discrepancies. Let me rename these columns. Let me start from this column, double click there, and the multiplication will be cost. Almost ready to go. Let me filter the total cost. I don't want to bring zeros. I just want to focus my attention on those items that have discrepancy. I say, okay, I remove that zero. Now I have only the information from items with discrepancies. And we're ready to load this information to Excel. Here on the Home tab, close and load to. I want to bring this information as connection only. So I click here and only create connection. And I also want to bring this information to the data model. Select that and press OK. Here I have all my queries, including my function. We right click at all discrepancies, load to. We're going to select pivot table report, add it to the data model, say OK. Okay, from here, let's start building our pivot tables. So I'm going to start by the store, which is the name. Here I'm going to have the cost. Click at this arrow. More options. I'm going to click here on ascending. I want to sort by the sum of cost column. I press OK. Actually, I'm going to rename this. I'm going to call it discrepancy. I'm going to change the design. I go to Design tab, Report Layout, Show in Tabular Form, and I like this better. Let's change the formatting. I want to bring the number format, 1000 separator, no decimals, okay, okay. This is my first table. I'm going to copy this since I already formatted the numbers, and I'm going to copy that maybe over here because I want to add some information. The pivot table will expand. I need to make some room for that. So here I'm going to paste it with Control V. Ideally, you would have one pivot table per sheet, but for the purposes of this example, I will keep all the information in one sheet. So it's easier for me to show you what I'm doing. And here I'm going to change the name. I don't want that. I want to bring the item description. Okay. For some reason, it didn't keep the sorting. I will need to do that again. Let's copy this. Let's leave some room as well. Control V. I'm going to remove the item description, bring the zone. Which zone are these discrepancies coming from? Sort it again. And the last one will be the manager. So I'm going to remove zone, just selecting that, drag it to the left, and then selecting the new item to include on the rows. But it will be manager. Same thing, we need to sort it. Okay, now we're ready to create our pivot charts. I know this tutorial has been a little bit long, so I'm going to just create those pivot charts very quickly, and I'll be back. Here are all our charts. Just let me remove the grid lines in view, grid lines. It looks just a little bit better. I created one chart for the discrepancies by store, another one by product, by zone, and by manager. Now it's easier to identify which stores, which products, which zones, and which managers are the ones with the highest discrepancies, and start digging into internal controls, bring accountability, etc. If you have been watching this channel, you probably know that I really like to show you how quick and easy it is to add and update information when we are using Power Query. So let's add more tabs to our original file. First, I'm going to save our work. And I'm going to open our all stores file. I'm going to also open another file where I have 5 more tabs from store 11 to store 15. Same thing, there is no consistency on the layout. Click at the first sheet, press and hold Shift, click at the store 15. So we can select all those sheets at once. Right click, select Move or Copy. Here on To Book, click at the row and select all stores. Let's go to the end of that list, and I want to move all of these to the end. Click OK. Now our file has 15 sheets instead of 10. I need to save it so Power Query will recognize the new data. Save it. So I'm going to close it. Go back to my sort file. Go to Data. Refresh all. You will notice that our list of stores will expand. We have only 10 stores at the moment. Now we have 15 stores. Our charts with the discrepancies have also been updated at the same time that the pivot tables. Now we have 15 stores. Store 13 is having a big issue. $13,000 for almost $14,000 in discrepancies. That is alarming. Same with the store 3. So this is a great opportunity to identify the stores, identify which products are missing the most. So what is the problem? Why is so easy for those products to go missing? By zone, which zones are the ones with more discrepancies? Is there an issue for the area where the stores are located? Or is it just that the managers are not implementing internal controls strong enough to avoid this inventory missing? I hope you found this information useful. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also, share with anybody that you believe can benefit from it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.